What's up, YouTube? Welcome back. So,
ooh, look at that. Perfect example. Lawn mowers.
Equipment, stuff that sits all winter long with fuel in the fuel tank and carburetors and fuel injection systems. So we, obviously, like most people, have gas-powered products, vehicles, lawn mowers, chainsaws, weed whackers, you name it. But what can I tell you about those products? That we don't use stable. We don't. So we have jet skis, right? We take them for maintenance. But the only product we put in our small engines is Super. And guess what? They start every year. Every year. Snowblower, every year. I've had that snowblower for what, 5 years? Maybe. Has it been? It's been 5 years. I've trash picked used weed whackers, taking the bad gas out. People, gasoline goes bad. Ethanol fuel today degrades at such a high rate. And if you had ever seen ethanol come out of a fuel tank, especially a metal fuel tank, and I think that has to do with atmosphere, it's almost like water. And that's why, you know, you can't let ethanol fuel sit. You can put fuel stable in it, but it still degrades. And it degrades to enough that there's not enough flash point to start a car. It may have a little smell of gasoline to it still, but it's not enough to fire off in an engine. In the old days, the gasoline, in my opinion, depending on its environment, was better for longevity. But, you know, the best for me, in my experience, in our climate, because there's climate changes affect a lot of different fuels and oils, is that we use Super, and it has more additives in it, which are better for your vehicle. Hence, right, the protection against moisture, and that's what's going on with the fuel, is that its ability to not get that moisture in the fuel, and that's why our lawn mowers and things like that, they don't gel, they don't usually varnish, and that's how our small engine stuff starts every year without using stable. So it's a simple switch. Buy the more expensive gasoline, and probably different climates of the world that it still needs stable. But here in South Jersey, we just buy Super. We put Super in all our small engines, and all our small engines start every year. And you sit all winter, and then come out and pop the cap on it, and it still smells like gas, and fire it right up and burn that tank down. Now, it's degraded a little bit, but it didn't degrade enough to where it can't flash off, meaning start. And that's the trick. And most race car guys who use E10 or E20 or E15, they don't let that fuel sit. If they go to the track and they filled their tank and they burned, we'll just say they had 10 gallons, they burned 2 gallons at the track, and they take that car home and they let that thing sit, and they test it for alcohol content, because that's the important property in race fuel, is the alcohol. That stuff gets drained right out, and I don't know what they're doing with it, but they're not running it in a race car. You know, how about that? So that's some facts right there for you. Race car guys do not run race gas that is stale or old, because it degrades. So in my Monte Carlo, I use Super, but my tank vent is so large, and my fuel tank is in my trunk, it is constantly changing with atmosphere. It's not really a stable environment. So in the day it's 90 or 100 degrees, right? And then at night it's 60 degrees. So the Super resists that moisture buildup, and then it evaporates off in my tank, keeping it that every week I have a fresh tank of fuel in my Monte Carlo. Sure. So I drive it every day, and I put gas in it every week, so I always have a fresh tank. If that tank of gas sat for a period of time, because my tank vent is so large, my fuel that's in my fuel cell evaporates. So I will come out and I will look in my fuel cell, and there won't be any fuel in there, because it evaporated into the atmosphere. So I don't really have to worry about that in my race car, because it's evaporating and burning at a fast rate. but most, I'm going to say probably all high-powered race car guys, if it takes a gallon a pass or 2 gallons a pass, and they know that car, they're probably not over-fueling their fuel system, so they're not wasting $30, $40 a gallon worth of fuel, knowing that if it's sat for a couple days, it's not going to have the volatility or the protection that they're looking for, and that's why most race car guys just drain that fuel out and start over from scratch.
Wow.
And then a lot of these vehicles today, we have sensors that are called flex fuel sensors, which is measuring the alcohol content in the fuel, and I can look at a scanner that has that diagnostic capability, and it will tell me how volatile that fuel is in their tank. And some of it will say low, some will say high. The definitions change from here and there, but that, you know, that ethanol sensor is telling the computer what to do based on the alcohol content that it's measuring.
Wow.
Pretty interesting, right?
Yeah, it is.
But yeah, ethanol fuel seems to turn into more water as it sits without it being the super, which is the better fuels. You know, people argue this, that super is no better than regular. You're wrong. The corn on this side of the field and the corn on this side of the field may not be genetically the same, but they're making fuel out of it. You know, and that's the truth. So that's it. So ethanol fuel is made with corn. They make alcohol, and they mix the alcohol with the fuel. They blend it. They try and make it as stable as possible. And regular E10 or E15 is not as stable as the super because of the ad pack that they put in there. But there is a difference. In the old days, if you had a car that sat for 20 years, I don't care what grade gasoline it is, it's going to be shot. If you had ethanol 20 years ago and it was sitting in that gas tank, you'd basically be draining out water. Yeah, and that's basically what I find when I smell cars, you know, that come in that have bad gas. That pungent gasoline smell that so many people are like, well, I love the smell of gas. I hate the smell of gas. I hate the smell of gasoline on my hands. It takes days for it to get out of the pores of my skin.
I don't mind the smell of gas.
That's because you don't deal with it, you know. But that's how our small engines start every year. Is we don't use stable. We use super, which is the top grade fuel that you can buy, and it's more stable than the cheaper gas. And the cheaper gas is exactly what it is, and it's the same theory in your car. You put cheap gas in your car, it doesn't have the protection that super does, and protection coming from detonation. You can also get detonation from oil behind the ringlands too. A lot of people don't realize that. So when your car, and that goes for small engines too, certain oils, the way that they're made up, will detonate during combustion behind the ringlands, causing more issues with sticky valves.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so detonation is not a good thing, and there's certain oils that will detonate behind your ringlands that you won't necessarily hear, but it is causing problems. A lot of people probably don't know that, but look it up. I challenge you. There's detonation going on behind your ringlands from oil. All right, that's that. Thanks for watching.